Hey everyone, this is Bob with part 4 of my video series on chord progressions for songwriters. In this video, we'll take a look at chord progressions in minor keys. Now, if you've not done so already, make sure you take a look at part 1, 2, and 3 as we'll build on that knowledge. We'll pick up where we left off last time on the keyboard, and then we'll come back to the guitar. Go get your notepad, because there's lots to cover here, so let's get started. To have a clear understanding of what chords are available in a minor key, we must first understand the minor scale, just as we did with the major scale. This will allow us to build our chords diatonically within the scale. Now, we can best learn the minor scale by comparing it to the already learned major scale. Now, there are a couple of ways to look at this comparison, and I think it's important to understand both. So we'll start with the relative minor and then how it relates to the relative major keys. So every major key has a relative minor, and it's always built on the 6th degree of that major scale. Since we've been working in C, all of the white keys, we'll continue with that so it's familiar to you. But keep in mind that every concept we discuss here applies to every key. To review, here's the major scale in C. So to find its relative minor, all we have to do is count up to the 6th degree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can see that A is the note that we land on. So A minor then is the relative minor of C. Now sometimes it's easier to go down a third, as going down a third lands on the same note but an octave lower. 1, 2, 3. Now that's the same as going up to the 6th degree. So for you guitar players, you can go down 3 half steps or 3 frets to do the same thing. I look at going down a third as the opposite of going up a 6th. Although not really related to a minor chord discussion, I have found it helpful in my compositions to understand the following concept. If I go up a 4th, that's the same as going down a 5th. I land on the same note. Up a 5th, down a 4th. Up a 6th, down a 3rd. Up a 7th, down a 2nd. Not a lot to memorize, but really helpful in getting around the scale. Now let's get back to relative minor. What relative minor means is that every note found in the major key is exactly the same notes found in the relative minor key. It just has a different starting and ending point. So let's look at my example in C and A minor. The A minor scale starts with A because that's the 6th degree of the relative major, and it ends in A. That is exactly the same notes found in its relative major C. So if I start on A, I just played A natural minor. Now this minor scale is referred to as the natural minor scale, meaning these notes are found naturally in the relative major scale. Now we'll take a look at a couple of variations of the scale a little bit later. So far you could say that every major scale has a relative or natural minor scale built on the 6th degree, and conversely, every natural minor scale has a relative major scale built on the 3rd degree. So let's take a look. If I'm in A minor, its relative major is up a 3rd, 1, 2, 3. So if we have the exact same notes in A minor as we have in C major, then we'll have the exact same chords, right? Check it out. A minor, B diminished, C, D minor, E minor, F, G, and A minor. Those are exactly the same chords that are found in C major. So if I have the same notes and the same chords as I had in C, then how do I know if I'm playing in the key of C or A minor? Now that's a great question. And the answer is, what chord did you start with? What chord did you finish with? Or maybe a better question is, what is the tonal center of your composition? I'll give you one example. If I play these four chords, C, A minor, F, G, C, and back to C. What key am I playing in? I'm playing in C, right? The tonal center is around C. Now, what if I play those exact same chords, but I play it in this order? A minor, C, F, G, A minor. Check it out. Now I'm in the key of A minor. See how I shifted the tonal center to A minor? One interesting way for you to get started writing songs in a minor key is to take chord progressions that you already know in a major key, but land on the relative minor chord. And in my example, in C, I'm replacing the C with the A minor, and so I'm shifting that tonal center to A minor. For example, the last time we talked about how many songs have been written using the 1-4-5 progression in a major key. So in C, that would be C, F, G, and then back to C. Now, if I replace the C with A minor, now we have a chord progression in a minor key. So let's start that C, instead of C, F, G, let's go A minor, F, G. I'm just replacing the C with the A minor. So experiment with that, and you'll be surprised what you come up with. So let's look at these chords now in terms of their scale degree, like we did with major keys. So the 1, A minor, is minor. The 2 is diminished. The 3 is major. The 4 is minor, and the 5 is minor. The 6 is major. The 7 is major, and then back to 8 minor. Notice that the 1, 4, and 5 are now minor chords. 1, 4, 5. That's A minor, D minor, and E minor. Now that is exactly opposite of what we had in a major key. The 1, 4, and 5 were all major chords. And now the 3, 6, and 7 are major chords. C, F, and G. That's the 3, 6, and 7. So this is exactly the opposite of what we had in a major key. Now I know the 2nd is a diminished chord, and that was the 7th degree in the major key, but it's still a minor chord. It has that minor 3rd. So now's probably a good time to discuss the minor chord construction. How do I know if I'm playing a minor chord? You have to have a flatted 3rd or a minor 3rd for it to be a minor chord. A major 3rd is 4 half steps from the root note. So looking at C, notice this interval right here is 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 half steps. This is a major 3rd. Okay, to make that a minor chord, we have to have this as a minor 3rd. We need to flatten the 3rd, and the 5th remains the same. So if I flatten the 3rd, I now have a C minor instead of C major. So the flatted 3rd is the only difference between a major chord and a minor chord. Again, you cannot have a minor chord without a flatted 3rd. Let's take a look at the whole step and half step relationship in natural minor. Remember, in a major scale, it was whole step, half. Whole step, whole step, whole step, half. Now, how's that different in a natural minor scale? Well, we'll start on A and end in A and take a look. So here it's a whole step and then a half step. So we start with a whole step and a half, and then it's whole step, and then here's a half, and then 2 whole steps to finish off the scale. So I look at this scale this way. I start with a whole step and a half. That's easy to remember. It's one of each. And then I have 2 whole steps, and then I end with 2 whole steps, and it's separated by this half step here. So it's kind of easy if you have a little visual reference. So now with this knowledge, we can take a look at how the minor scale compares to its parallel major. So let's take a look at C. We understand the major scale is all of the white keys. So now if we apply that whole step, half step relationship, we can see how it's different. So we start off with a whole step and then a half. So right there we have a difference on that third. In the major key, that third is here, but in a minor key, it's a flatted third. So we have a flatted third, and then we have whole step, So the 4 and the 5 is the same. The 6th degree, we have a half step here, and so that is a flatted 6, because normally it would be here. And then the 7th degree is that whole step, and that is a flatted 7th, and then back to C. So we ended with whole step. So the difference is we have the flatted 3rd, the flatted 6th, the flatted 7th, and then back to C. So how this compares to the major scale again, I have a flat 3, flat 6, and a flat 7th. Now let's talk about the harmonic minor scale. It borrows the 7th degree from the major scale. Let's take a look at that in A minor, because we know the A natural minor has all of the white keys. Okay, so if we're going to take a look at taking that 7th degree and raising it back up like it would be on the major scale. So if you remember, in the major scale, the 7th degree was only a half step away from the tonic. So that would be 7 and then 8, right? So this is how this would look. Remember that half step relationship from the 7 to the 8 in the major scale? Well, now I'm just borrowing it, so I don't have this flatted 7th anymore. I raise it back up to the natural 7th. So why would I want to do this natural 7th back in my minor scale? Well, the big reason for that is it changes the 5 chord now. If I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, instead of being minor, I don't have this note anymore. It's here. Okay, so that now makes this 5 chord a major chord. And then if I add the 7th to that, that is a very powerful resolution to the tonic, or to the back to the A minor. Let's take a look at it and see real quick. I have a flatted 3rd, 4 and 5, flatted 6th, and then the natural 7, and then the tonic. Well, this jump from here to here, that is a huge jump. That's a whole step and a half. Normally in scales, you have either whole steps or half steps. This is a whole step and a half. So it's kind of a strange sounding scale, but I tell you, the reason we need it and the reason it's so popular is so you can get that dominant 5 chord that is so powerful in its resolution to the tonic. Now, the melodic minor scale puts the 6th and the 7th back like it was in the major scale. And what this leaves you with is the flatted 3rd. So when C has a flatted 3rd, then everything else is like it was in major. So that is melodic minor. Now, I'm going to let you work these chords out diatonically, and you're going to find some strange chords here. So let's go over to the guitar and let's play some chord progressions in minor keys. Let's try some chord progressions on the guitar now. Let's try the 1, 4, 5 in a minor key. So we'll just stick with A minor for now. Okay. So you've heard that progression before. That 5 chord being a minor chord is not real popular in pop music. As we'll see, we'll look at some alternatives to that. But that's a very dark sounding chord progression because all of the chords are minor. Now, when we were looking at the piano, I just said, take some of your chord progressions that you're doing in major keys and replace the 1 with that relative minor. So if we're in C, for example, I'm going to replace the C with the A minor. Let's take a look at the 1, 4, 5 in the major key of C. C, F, G, and back to C. Now, if I just replace the C with A minor, I instantly shifted this into a minor key. So let's check this out. So in A minor, that is 1, 6, 7, 1. The A is 1. A minor is 1. The F is 6. The G is 7. And back to 1. In a major key, another popular chord progression was 1, 4, 2, 5, 1. A lot of times we precede the 5 with the 2. So in the key of C, that would be C, F, D minor, G, back to C. So if I was going to put that A minor in the place of C, then it would be 1, 6, 4, 7, 1, right? And in A minor, that would be A minor, F, D minor, G, and then back to A minor. So let's check that out. A minor, F, D minor, so start with that as an idea for your chord progressions. Take your major key, whatever key you're playing in, and substitute it for that 6 minor. Replace the 1 with the 6 minor, and just experiment with that a little bit. Now, one chord that is not very useful in pop music is that 5 chord. So we're going to take a look at ways to get around that with harmonic minor. What we saw on the keyboard is that we're replacing that 7th tone. We're raising it back up as if we were in a major key. So that allows us to play that 5 chord as a major chord, and then we'll add the 7th onto that to make it a dominant 7th. Let's see how that resolves very well back to A minor. So let's just try that 1, 4, 5 again in a minor key. So in A minor, it would be A minor, D minor. Now instead of playing E minor, I'm going to play E7. Resolves very nicely back to the A minor. So you've heard that a million times. So that dominant 7th is very powerful in this minor key. Now let's step down in scale degrees. Let's go 1, 7, 6, 5. And that 5 is going to be a dominant 5 chord. So we're going to play that E7. So check that out. You've heard many songs written using that 1, 7, 6, 5 or dominant 5. How about 1, 3, 4, 6, 7? Now in A minor, that would be A minor, C, D minor, F, E. Let's check that out. How about that 2 chord in a minor key? That was that diminished chord. You remember when we were playing in a major key, I said, you're really not going to find that to be a useful chord. As a matter of fact, we just stuck with 6 chords, eliminating that diminished chord. You remember that was the 7th degree in a major key. Well, it's the 2nd degree in a minor key, and I think it's useful, especially going to that dominant 5 chord, right? So let's check this out. This is love, love, how it feels. So go check out my song, Love How It Feels, where I make use of that diminished chord. Now actually, I added a 7th in there, so that's a B minor 7 with a flat 5, going to the E7. Very powerful sound, love it. So there you go, guys. I gave you a lot to absorb. So just be creative with your chords, and these minor keys should really open up some new creativity for you in terms of mode and melody. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Please comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.